Hello again, MMA True Believers. I am Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and I am joined by this individual for the second time in just 3 months because he's that cool of a guy. I enjoy talking to him. He's a former fighter, but now a current trainer, agent, and manager, top game management for a bunch of talented fighters in the infamous New England Cartel. And that man is Tyson Chartier, or as some call him, Uncle T. Tyson, what is up, man? And even though I think we're around the same age a little bit, can I call you Uncle T as well?
Whatever works, man. That's what they all call me. So,
How did Uncle T come about? When I talked to Calvin the last time, that's how I discovered the Uncle T. When was the first time you were called Uncle T?
so I think it was actually Rico DeShulo. He fought in the Contender Series a couple summers ago. He used to be my teammate, and then ultimately ended up being my roommate. And he was actually one of the first two guys I managed. And he just started calling me Uncle T out of the blue. I don't know why, but because I'm a little older than a lot of the other guys that when I was training, I was a few years older. So he just at practice like, "Come on, Uncle T," and then he just kept calling me that. And then other guys started joining in. So now Calvin does it quite a bit, and it kind of stuck.
Is it a type of thing that at first it's like, what the hell's going on? But after a while, you're starting to become like this guiding force for people, big brother, big father figure type. Has it started to fit now?
I think it starts to fit. I'm kind of like the part of being a coach and being a manager is you're there for those guys emotionally. So I think you do end up like forming that bond of like brothers or uncles or something like that. So I think it makes sense, and I understand it. And so I take it more of a term of endearment, not a term of old age.
Fair enough. Now, speaking of Calvin Kattar, of course, that's one of the major things I want to talk about with you, along with a whole bunch of New England Cartel stuff. But Calvin, first, before we get to the fight itself and the specifics of it, first, when the fight was originally moved from its Boston date, switched to Moscow because, as Calvin said, this guy has some kind of blood issue that needed like 3 weeks to heal and all this other stuff. When that originally happened, what were your thoughts? Was it like a lot of anger? Was it a lot of frustration? Was it like, I'm used to this by now, being a manager, fight, trainer, all these kind of things? Like, what were your original opinions when that first happened?
I think I got it on got the email late on a Wednesday night. So I didn't even tell Calvin because I wanted to sleep. And then the next day I saw him at strength and conditioning, and I just kind of let him know what's going on. But at the time, we just knew he was out. So we didn't know if we were going to get a replacement or if they were going to try to move the fight. So I told Calvin the next morning, I'm just like, hey, the beat's out. Let's just assume we're still fighting October 18th in Boston. But the fight could get pushed. We'll see what the options are, and we'll figure out what the best case scenario is. He leaned over. He bit me like right here on the shoulder. That's like a circle. And he goes, like kind of hard. And then he goes up, he goes, all right, just do your thing. Let me know where I'm fighting. So Calvin took it cool.
Yeah.
My thing is like, I think 3-4 years ago, I would have gotten frustrated with this. But at the end of the day, like I tell the guys, like, we can only focus on what we can control. Right. We can't control whether the blood infection's fake, not fake. It doesn't even matter. Like, that's the situation that we're in. That's the cards that we're dealt. And so now we just have to focus on like, listen, like we're still fighting. We just don't know when. And we'll take the best opportunity that there is to try to, help you accomplish your goals. And so for a few weeks, we didn't know what was going on. And then, the UFC called me and they just said, hey, listen, you can fight Zabit in Moscow and we'll make it the co-main event, or we can wait and we'll see what else comes up. And I was like, well, obviously we want the Zabit fight.
Right.
Not ideal to go to Russia, but that makes it a bigger win.
Yeah.
And I think he was the quickest route to accomplishing our goal, because I think a good win over him would have really put us in a talk of potentially warranting a title or at least a contender fight. So I think it would have been foolish of us to, even in hindsight, to say no to that fight, because who knows, maybe we still don't even have a fight booked. So I think the way it all turned out, we got the loss. I'm sorry, the phone came in. But we got the loss, but I really think Calvin's stock still went up. I don't think anybody's thinking like, oh, that was a one-hit wonder or anything like that. I think they're like, oh, okay, like, a lot of people are saying like Calvin would have won if it was 5 rounds, but at the end of the day, like, it wasn't 5 rounds. The Heat fought a certain way because it was 3 rounds. Who knows how he would have fought if it was 5 rounds? And the contract that we signed was for 3 rounds. So we're not using that as an excuse. I think Calvin's handling that the right way. And but I do think a lot of people realized how good Calvin is. People talking about, oh, he's a good boxer, but how's his ground game? It's like, well, he's been the only one that's ever really been able to defend Zabit's takedowns, and everybody he's fought has gotten stuck in that trip. But every time they get stuck in the trip, they got stuck on the bottom too. So he got right back up, fought the hands, got away. So I think he showed that with one of the stickiest guys in the division, he's able to get away or defend a takedown. So I think he showed a lot of people some things that they think maybe he wasn't capable of. So I really do think his stock went up. I think, I've had some media outlets reach out to me and say that, the interest for that fight week was like 2-1 Calvin over Zabit. I know Zabit's got the following. He's big in Russia, but the number of impressions that were people looking at Calvin and searching Calvin's name and stuff like that is pretty good. So there is a level of interest there. And I think that's something that the UFC could take advantage of down the road because he's a good looking kid. He's got an awesome style. And I think he showed that he belongs right up there with the top 5 in the world.
Now, when I talked to Calvin, he mentioned, when the change was happening, a lot of friends and family, they had booked, flights or hotels, stuff like that, and that's a pain in the ass. Now, for you, like I mentioned in the opening, you handle multiple roles. You're not just a trainer, you're, manager, all these things too. So you have the role of trying to make something like a fight week for Calvin as easy as possible, making it smooth, and efficient, all these kind of things. How difficult is it for you on your end to have to do a Boston to all of a sudden prepare these things for Moscow? Like, do you have to, are you the one booking the fights? Is it the flights? Is it the UFC? When you get there, do you have to do all kinds of crazy work? And was it really difficult to all of a sudden have to switch and go from preparing for Boston, which is close by, to preparing all these different elements to make it easy for him in freaking Moscow all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that hurt is the logistical costs and the change. Calvin went from having no costs other than just maybe an extra hotel room or two for fight week to now all of a sudden having flights that cost $1,300-1,500,
Wow.
visa costs that were like $400 a piece, and absorbing those. But by getting switched from the co-main event to the main event, you get an extra flight, an extra hotel room. So there was a blessing there that we did save some money in travel and logistics once we got moved to the main event, but it still cost us, $4,000 to $5,000 more than it would have if we fought in Boston. But as far as my role, yeah, I booked I get with all the fighters and the coaching staff and the support team. And, I get all the information. I support, book the flights with the UFC, make sure everybody's on the right flight, all that. Then I do all the logistics. I make sure we book an extra hotel room, all that stuff. And then once we're there, I want these guys thinking nothing but about the fight. So when we're going through the airport, they're just following me. I'm like, what gate are we going to? What time's our flight? I text them the night before. I said, here's what time's our flight leave. That's what time we have to be at the airport. The day before the flight, if someone asks them, hey, what time's your flight? They'll be like, I don't know, ask Uncle T. And I really think that's kind of the level of service that I think they deserve. They're going out to about, fight the number 5 guy in the world in Russia. He shouldn't be thinking about what time his flight's at. I try, and I don't know if every team's like that, but that's how I try to handle it. I want them to just think of nothing but the fight. If I can just take all the other BS, all the logistical questions, all the costs of what and where to be and what time, all the schedule issues, if I can just take that away from them, put it on my shoulders and just make sure we show up at the right time, prepared for what we're doing at that meeting, then we're good to go. So
when when we talked the first time, of course we talked a little bit about this fight, but you couldn't give me too much for obvious reasons. Now that the fight has passed, going into the fight, what were the specifics, game plan, elements, and strategy you had for Zabit? Like, what did you want to do? What did you want to avoid? And then when it started, the fight started playing out for like the first few rounds, was the game plan going where you wanted? Where did you have to make adjustments in between rounds? Like, from the planning to the actuality of the fight, how did things work out for you and Calvin?
So pretty much how he fought in the third round was really what we wanted him doing. We wanted him to kind of own the cage, put volume at him, wear him down, keep him on the warning track, cut him off with our footwork and, land punches. And he did that. And, the big thing going into it is, listen, we can't let this kid take us down. We have to protect our lead leg. And he checked every leg kick. He defended that single that he shot. I think it was he was either late in the first or in the second round. He shot a single leg, and Calvin defended it right away. And we knew that trip might come, but I think he got that. Maybe it was in the third round he got that, but we got right back up. Maybe it's like I'd have to go back and watch. But from all the defensive elements that we were concerned about, this is how Zabit beats everybody else. Like, we took those away, so I'm happy about that. And we forced him to beat us in ways that he hasn't really beat other people. You never really seen him rush forward like that, and with all the volume that he really kind of had to take people down to win fights,
Right.
steal rounds. he's, a bit of a runner where he'll go backwards a lot, evade punches, and just kind of pop shot go, and then just kind of squeak out rounds. Or if he gets you down, he mauls you. He came forward, he pressured us, and he brought volume. And I think that surprised us a little bit because we've never really seen that out of him. We've seen him come forward, but not with the tenacity that he did, especially where we thought we'd have the upper hand in the boxing, which I don't necessarily think we didn't have the upper hand. He just threw more shots. Calvin stayed protected. He was kind of waiting for his time, looking for the openings, and they just didn't come as fast as he wanted. I think what we could have done better in the first or the second round is more volume. Like, Calvin's attitude towards it was, well, I was covering, I was blocking, and he had a good high guard too, so I was trying not to waste my energy. And so then when you look at the stats, he kind of landed 2-1 what we did in the first round. And, no one really landed anything solid. He didn't land anything solid on us in the first round, but he had some good flashy spinning stuff, and he was throwing a lot that we were protecting. But, if we blocked 50 shots and we only throw 20, then, you lose on the scorecards. Yeah. So it was a learning experience there. But I think in the second round, he finally started coming on a little bit stronger. And then in the third round, he was like, all right, I got to go.
Yep.
But I think obviously hindsight's always 20/20. It's easier for me to say it than for them, sometimes than them to do it. But, I was perfectly fine if Zabit came forward like he did, is just holding our ground in the center of the cage and fighting in a phone booth. Because I think there's not many people, anybody can get caught, but there's not many people that are going to be able to have like a technical brawl with Calvin and kind of come out on the winning end of the stick. So I think, and he showed that in the third round, then Zabit started backing up. Obviously he was a little tired, so that played into it. But, just a couple adjustments and that fight's ours. All we had to do is, come out a little bit earlier in the second round and do that same thing. We win the fight. But, it's coulda, woulda, shoulda. And he'll learn from it. We've had long talks about it already. And I think he's hungry. This didn't like discourage him. It just made him realize like, okay, like this is the boogeyman. And we just took it to him. And now all anybody wants to say is, well, if there was a fourth and the fifth round, but there wasn't. So we know we can fight the boogeyman and we can win. So we didn't get it done this time, but there's not too many other guys that are lining up to fight Zabit as it is. So we went into his hometown. We took a chance and no regrets. I think Calvin showed the world that, he's a contender. I don't think anybody's looking at Brian Ortega like he's not a good fighter anymore because he lost to Max Holloway. Okay. I think we're kind of in that position now, but even more so, we fought, we didn't get beat up. We were right there. If you're scoring the fight on overall, we did more damage. We, probably hurt him more than he hurt us, but he fought by the rules and he won 2 rounds and we won 1. But so I think it gives him confidence moving forward, regardless of who we fight next. There's not too many guys that are going to be more well-rounded and tougher than Zabit and bring that body, that he's a big guy. So I think we're excited about what comes next. And I'm encouraged that really doesn't matter who they put in front of us. I know we can win.
And I think that tells a lot about Calvin, that like you said, this was the guy a lot of people were scared of. And in a weird way, people are now looking at that fight, second guessing Zabit, going, oh, I don't know if he's ready for a title shot. But that's more to Calvin's skill set. Calvin made him look finally like human and like he could be beatable. And now, people are not seeing it from that point of view. But of course I have to ask, I mean, and you brought up several times, and everybody's talking about the 4th, 5th round. If there was a 4th or 5th round, how big that was. Because on 2 of the judges' scorecards, he won the 3rd round. And clearly, there was a momentum shift. There was a total momentum shift in that 3rd round. You can feel the difference in Calvin and how that fight was going. And Zabit, from just a novice point of view, in his other fights, it seems like the 3rd round, he starts to get tired. So I'm curious what he can do in the 4th, 5th round against Calvin, and his unlimited gas tank would have been interesting. I mean, I guess you probably don't want to go to that and play too much in that. So in a way, from a coaching trainer perspective, do you need to kind of just like what you're saying, kind of just not even put that idea in your mind? Because if you start thinking about its excuses and you maybe look away from the things that you can fix and adjust, do you even as a person, as frustrating as it might be, do you have to kind of just like, whatever, I can't even think about, I can't even talk about what would have happened, woulda, shoulda, because it's just going to drive me crazy.
Yeah, no, it would have been fun to see a 4th and the 5th round. I think the fans would have liked it. It would have been interesting to see how the fight went. Obviously, it was trending in our direction. I don't really understand the judge that gave him the 3rd round. That gave the 3rd round. That was the same judge that gave us the 2nd. So I don't know. But all that semantics. It's good to talk about. It's good on the journalist side. You guys can kind of like, but I think what it really does is it like down the road. I think Brett Okamoto tweeted this out. He's like, I'm not surprised if we see him down the road again because it was such a good fight and there was the drama with the third round and it only being 3 instead of 5. So I really would be surprised if we fight him again down the road and it's 5 rounds.
And you mentioned already, like, what's next, and that's the obvious next question in terms of Calvin. Again, from your perspective, because you are a manager too, so you really have to deal with the UFC in terms of, like, what's next? Is he going to take some time off? Is he going to maybe take a couple months, relax, vacation? Does he want to get back in there? Is there an idea of a point in time you guys like to get him back in the cage? Is it a spring thing? And then from your perspective as a manager too, do you have to go to the UFC and give some option? Do you have to wait for the UFC to come to you with something? What's next for you and Calvin in terms of his career the next 3, 4, 5 months?
Well, Calvin's always in the gym, so we can really go as fast as he's healthy, and he's pretty healthy leaving that fight. I think he said it in the post-fight press conference. The only thing that was sore on him was his hand, and the only thing sore on Zabit was his face. So, which is obviously just him being cheeky, but he's pretty healthy leaving it. He already did strength and conditioning this week. He's getting back in the gym, so he could go as early as he really needs to. I would say we're going to be patiently ready. Like, I don't. He knows he's got some things he needs to work on. We're not opposed to fighting in January or February if an opportunity comes up. But we're also, if we had to wait till March or April, it's not the end of the world because I've said this on many interviews, like Calvin's still getting better. He's not one of those 30-year-old guys in the UFC that for 4 fights in a row, you can see his skill set's the same. Like he's still getting better.
Yeah.
I think 2 camps ago, I think Zabit takes him down with that takedown, or maybe, I'm just saying, like, but now I'm confident that like he can defend those takedowns. I mean, he's got great wrestling, but I think his mindset was different where he knew he had great wrestling, so he wasn't as eager to like, not engage in the wrestling because he was confident that he could get back up. I think you see him grow mentally as a fighter. You're seeing his tool set kind of grow. And, how many kicks did he land in that last fight? 8. I think he landed 8 kicks. He's never really kicked in fights before. We got him working with a new Muay Thai coach. So he's not just a boxer. He's a wrestler that has really good boxing, and now he's really working on his Muay Thai. So I think you're going to see, like, every session that we get, there's going to be improvements. So if we have to wait a little bit to fight, he's only going to be better. So he's not going to be worse off for it. But there's a lot of big names out there. Obviously, in a couple of weeks, you got who is it? Zombies fighting Ortega in a few weeks. So I think that'll have some title implications. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how Frankie does down to 35. Maybe he bumps back up. Who knows? Dude, those are always weird things. Like the Aldo going down to 35. So I think if those 2 guys go down to 35, it kind of shakes things up at 45.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
If they establish themselves as 35ers now. Yep. You got like Emmett and Stevens sitting around right above us, but Stevens coming off 3 losses, but he's a beast. Josh Emmett, very similar to Jeremy Stevens, just not as experienced. I really thought we'd end up jumping them in the rankings just off the Zabit performance. I thought maybe we'd leapfrog those guys, but not that it matters. So it'll be interesting to see. There's some good fights out there, and since we're coming off a loss, a lot of times they do like to put like guys coming off losses against each other. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up getting the loser of Ortega and Korean Zombie. If they want to put us in another big fight. If they're not looking to try to put us in another big fight, maybe we get, like a Jeremy Stevens or a Josh Emmett or something like that. And I know Josh won his last fight, I believe, but who knows? We'll see. I do think Calvin's got some star power in him, and I think UFC is starting to realize that. Yeah. So maybe that'll help us get the bigger fight, which would be, Zombie and Ortega. So we'll see, man. We just want tough fights. We want to keep getting that second paycheck. My little boy's at home now. But yeah, I think it doesn't really matter who they put across us. We just want big fights. Yeah. Calvin wants to keep cashing checks and change his life, change his family's life, and that's what our goal is.
You have another long-time fighter going to another pivotal fight in Rob Font, going up against Ricky Simon on December 7th. This is an important fight for Rob to really get some traction and start moving towards contendership, because he's already a legitimate top name in the division. It's just about getting to contention because his last 4 opponents are some of the very best in the weight class that he's fought, like Pedro Munoz, Sunsao. But because of that, they are elite guys. He's had to, flipped wins and losses in those 4 fights. So 2 straight against, say, a Sergio Pettis in his last fight he won, and against a win against Simone would be huge. Simone, before his Faber loss, was one of the fastest rising talents in the division. What are your thoughts on him as a fighter, Ricky Simone, and the surprise loss to Uriah Faber? Because he was the favorite. A lot of people were surprised, including me, that he did lose to Uriah Faber.
Well, Uriah Faber is such an OG that I don't think you can ever really count him out. If he's a smart guy. You've shown that every time he's put like TLC into a fighter, they've ended up being a really top quality opponent, like Cody, no love, and now he's got Song Yadong that he's working on a lot. So he's a smart, intelligent businessman, and he's obviously prideful. So he wouldn't come back if he didn't think he could do it. So you got to factor that in. I think Ricky Simone is just, he's kind of like that new age Contender Series fighter. They're coming out, they're hungry, they're getting some good wins, but they don't necessarily they're not mature in the cage yet. I think Rob's been there since 2014. He's had some setbacks already where he's fought some of the top guys in the world. He felt a Sunsao. He felt what that feels like. He made some mental mistakes against Munoz. He felt the power of a John Lineker. So there's not too much he can go in there and fight against that Ricky Simone's going to be able to throw at him that he hasn't felt before. Right. Obviously, we would have liked a ranked opponent, but at the end of the day, you just have to keep fighting and winning. Rob's probably had one of the saddest 2019s there is in the UFC, other than being injured. He's been a healthy scratch coming off a big win. He's been a healthy scratch for 12 months in the prime of his career. And it's just a series of unfortunate events. It was supposed to be, in Greenville, and then Cody pulled out, and then we got Lineker, and then Lineker pulled out the night for the weigh-ins, and then it was like we were supposed to get a quick turnaround. It didn't materialize. Then we were definitely on the Boston card, and we thought we had a couple of opponents, but then it didn't materialize. And, then here we are fighting, December 7th in DC. It'll be basically 51 weeks since his last fight, and he's been healthy the whole time. Coming off a decent win against Sergio Pettis, who's obviously, a top contender at 125, and I think he would have done well at 135 in the UFC if he had stayed. So, I think but the thing that sets Rob apart from other fighters that I think maybe have had 10 fights in the UFC is that he's been in the gym the whole year, and he's gotten better. Like I said, the same thing about Calvin, but I think a year ago, Ricky Simone might have been a harder fight because Rob had one last year of wrestling. He's been wrestling with the University of Southern Maine guys with Coach John Dupree and Mike Morin for a straight year now. He started that right after the Sunsao fight because he felt like his wrestling wasn't up to par. And just gauging from the Pettis camp to this camp, his wrestling is on another level. He's been working with some high-level black belts on some tricky stuff in jiu-jitsu, and it's like he's just on another level on the ground now. And now you supplement that with the fact that he's obviously got really dangerous hands and one of the best jabs in the division. I just don't see how Ricky has the tool set to beat him. Obviously, Ricky's a tough kid. He comes from a good camp, but we're bigger, we're longer, we hit harder, and I think we're more, we're a lot more well-rounded. It's a fight that I think really Rob can showcase all his skills. If Ricky does get us down, he can't hold us down. If we take him down, I don't think he's getting back up. And if it comes down to a battle of the hands and the knees and the feet, Rob's going to win that all day. And Rob always does well against people he knows need to take him down. So, I don't think Ricky's, I don't want to say foolish, but I think he knows his skill set and he knows where he can try to beat Rob. And I don't think he's going to try to go toe-to-toe with him. I said this, I think, last February after he called Rob out after a win. He said he wanted Rob fought, and someone asked me what I thought about the fight, and I said, well, it's hard to take Rob down when you know that's what you want to do. And, like I said, took us down, but it was like we were standing, and then he just, he took us down. It's more of a surprise. We really didn't think he was going to go for that, but we know what Ricky's going to do. We know he's going to probably have to do, just because we're going to have the advantage on the feet. So I think it's a really good fight. It's got a good placement on the card, headlining the prelims on ESPN TV. So it'll get a lot of exposure, and I'm sure it'll get a little bit of a push on ESPN with commercials and stuff. So we're excited about it, man. It's just, 6-7 hour drive for us. We're all going to head down as a team and make a week of it. And I think get this win, get this hand raised, and then get a quick turnaround. Rob, he's 32 now. He needs to start getting on the run and fill his bank account back up.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking a year off when you're training full time. It's tough, man.
Yeah.
He just bought a house a year and a half ago, 2 years, and
man.
it's it hasn't been a great year for him in terms of that. It's been a very frustrating year, but I got to give it to him, man. He's a true professional. He kept training. He didn't get super discouraged. Like, obviously, he got frustrated, but he kept getting better. He didn't throw it in and be like, F this, I'm going on vacation. Like, he was in the gym getting better, And I'm excited about, this fight and seeing Rob showcase his skills and see how much better he got over the last year.
What is the connection between you and Anthony Rocco Martin? That you were in his corner for the last fight, because I remember he's been at ATT for a very long time. And he's recently been at ATT Atlanta with the Lima brothers. How did you two guys have you known each other for a long time? Like, how did that connection get going?
That's my brother.
Oh yeah,
he's my tall, receding brother. I was thinking Cat say his hairline's receding, but it's not. So Tony's always been a student of Brock Larson in Minnesota, and then at the time, his wife moved to Boston for grad school. So he moved with her, and this is back in, I think, 2014. And Tony came, he started training with us. That was when we were at Sayatong. And he started training with us, and we became buddies, and I got to know Brock really well. And then he had always had this dream of opening up a gym for Brock, because Brock was teaching at this gym that wasn't his for years and never collecting a paycheck. He would drive an hour and a half to the gym, teach every night, get guys like Tony all the way from first day on the mat to the UFC winning fights and not getting paid. So he always had this dream of opening up a gym. And then me and Tony became friends. Like, I started coaching him a little bit while he was out here, cornered him for a few fights back then. And then me and him put our heads together and we opened up a gym with Brock in Minnesota called Start BJJ Minnesota. So we opened that up, I want to say 2.5 years ago. And that's in St. Cloud, Minnesota. The gym's doing pretty good. Brock gets paid. And so when he moved, him and his wife at the time moved down to Florida, and that's when he left the gym. So I didn't corner him for a couple fights, but we always stayed boys because we were friends, and then we run the gym together. And then now he's training with the Lima brothers in Atlanta. And when he got the fight in Moscow, and then Calvin did, he's like, "Hey man, jump in as a third corner." So I was joking. I was like, the band's back together. So it's just cool, man, seeing him. I've grown up like watching him mature from like a green rookie in the UFC to now someone who's 5-1 at the welterweight division. Like, he used to struggle to make weight at 55, and before he went down to ATT, there was like a debate, like, should he go down to 55, stay at 55 or go up to 70? And I'm like, Tony, you got to go up to 170. And so we came up with a plan. We just said, go down to ATT where you're not dieting and just train with the 170s and see how you do. And he went down. He's like, I can hang with all these guys. And then he linked up with Mike Brown as his head coach down there, and Mike was like, "You're at 170 pounds." Yeah. And they did wonders with him, and like I said, now he's 5-1 in the UFC at 170, and his only loss is to Damian Maia in a decision where one of the judges had it as a draw because they get a 10-8 third round. But I'm surprised he's not ranked, but it is what it is. He just needs to keep winning fights, climbing the ranks, and cashing paychecks. So. I'm excited about what's next for him.
At this last card, he in Moscow, he gets the win. He then has this post-fight speech about his mother, who has stage 4 breast cancer. A moment that was really touching. I even got me watery. Did all of you guys know about that during the camp? Was it news to you? Like, how did you?
It was news. So the weird thing about that, Tony keeps everything pretty close. I knew Brock. After the fact, I found out Brock did know about it, but Tony didn't let me know about it until after the fight. I found out there. And, we've talked about it since, but he gave the interview, but when you're in the cage, you can't hear what they're saying when you're one of the coaches. You can't hear the last speaker. So I see him talking, and then you see him start to cry, but it's like, obviously we're boys. So like, I knew it wasn't like a normal cry. I knew it wasn't just like, hey, I'm happy. Right. I could tell someone's wrong. So like, he said what he said, and then I just walked over while he was doing it, and I gave him a hug during the interview. And then but I didn't even know what was wrong. And then I think even after I was like, "Oh, you're a wuss, you crier." Like, I didn't know
man!
And then I know. And then I got back to the locker room, and they were like, "Dude, that sucks about Tony's mom." I was like, "What do you mean?" And they showed me the video on ESPN. It was like I was gutted. It's like, man, that sucks. Someone, 2019's been a rough year. Like I lost my mom back in February. My dad's house burned down 2 weeks ago, right before I left for Moscow. So it's just like, I could sympathize. Like, I know what it's like to lose a mom,
Yeah.
and now he's going to go through that process, and maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe they come with some miracle cure or something, and you just got to keep hope. But it was obviously a touching moment. You feel for him, and he knows, like, whatever he needs, I got him, and hopefully, I know he's home right now, spending some time with her, and they're going to get some good quality time together. So it sucks, man. Cancer sucks. I don't wish that on anybody, and it's it just sucks that it's happening to him too.
Randy Costa bounces back from a debut loss. He's another. He wrecks Boston Salmon and the card last month. He's another New England Cartel guy. Is he a guy that you work with specifically? Is he just a guy that's a part of the clique of all these different fighters that are different gyms in the area?
He's just on the clique. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he doesn't work with Top Game. I think Joe Lauzon manages him. He handles him from that standpoint, and then Joe Lauzon's one of his coaches. So, but we share a lot of the same coaches. He spars with my guys spar with him. So there's really no my guys, their guys, but they're all teammates, and he's just as much one of our guys as whether or not he's with Top Game or not. So he's part of that New England group that just needs to keep doing better. So it makes all these younger guys easier way to get in. So it was really good to see him get that win, because obviously you start out 4-0, you get in the UFC right away. And, you have a tough loss, and then, it's kind of like your back's against the wall. At that point, you lose another fight. You're 4-2. I don't see how they can keep you. He goes out and gets an awesome win against a guy who had some hype behind him. I remember when Boston Salmon came on the Contender Series, there was a big push behind him, and they really thought he, could be something special. And, he still could be, but I think Randy showed, like, okay, like, Randy belongs in the UFC now, and he had a really good performance. And, he's still so young.
Yeah.
He's still so young. He's just an athlete. To see him, like, just keep rounding out his game and getting better, it's it's encouraging for the whole New England MMA scene to see those things.
Another New England Cartel guy, Yorgan De Castro, first round knockout over Justin Tafa also last month. What are your thoughts on him? If you've worked with him frequently, is what's his upside as a heavyweight, and is that a guy that maybe in a different situation should he be at 205, because he doesn't seem like a very large heavyweight?
We weighed in at 265.
Really? Damn, he doesn't seem it.
So, yeah, I call him the brown Santa Claus, because he's so jolly and he's always happy and he makes you smile whenever you're around him. He's the man. So he's teammates with Mitch Raposo, the young phenom Mitch. And so his coaches came to me about a year ago around this time, and they said, hey, listen, we want to talk to you about Yorgan. He's 3-0. We think he's talented. We just kind of like, we want some guidance here. And so I had a couple calls with his coach, Brian, and then me and him and Coach Tommy and Yorgan talked at one of the Cage Titans events. And I knew who Yorgan was because we see him at Lauzon sparring all the time. And, I talked to him for a little bit, and, the debate was like, all right, should we go to 205? Should we go to heavyweight? And after having a couple conversations with him, I told him, I was like, listen, like, and I said to his coaches, I was like, listen, we can get him to 205. I go, but most of the 205ers are going to beat most of the heavyweights, realistically. They're athletic guys that hit just as hard, and they have better gas tank. I go, Yorgan loves to eat. I go, but he's an athletic kid. Yeah. I go, but he's not athletic at 205 because he's, like, killing himself getting down there. I go, well, why don't we get him doing strength and conditioning, because they have a good coach at Infinite Fitness that they work with. And I was like, why don't we get him on, like, a legitimate strength and conditioning program and, moderate his eating so he doesn't get like a fat ass, but control his eating and start eating like an athlete, and let's make him fill out to be like a legit heavyweight and a legit athletic heavyweight. And then I think you saw that, he had the flu going into that last fight with CES, but I told CES, I'm like, listen, I told his coach, we were going to pull him from the fight. I go, listen, we just need to get this win to get to 4-0. If we get to 4-0, I think we can get him on the Contender Series, because heavyweight's a very shallow division. I go, and if we get on the Contender, anything can happen. Right. And so he fought that last fight against Little with the flu, got the decision, and then we got the offer to be on the Contender Series. And, he fought that Olympic alternate wrestler, and that guy couldn't take him down. He showed his athleticism in that fight, and then TKO'd him with leg kicks at the end of the first round. And then you saw that last fight. Is
nasty.
At heavyweight, anything's possible. I don't think a lot of people were thinking he'd go in there and do that. I was hoping he would. But heavyweight, it's a roll of the dice. It's whoever lands first. And unfortunately, he's got a great team around him. He followed the game plan, and he sniped one, and he collected $50K for it. So the upside with him is really the sky's the limit, man, because he's still just scratching the surface as, when it comes to strength and conditioning and becoming more of an athlete and becoming a strong
Mm.
heavyweight. He's only been lifting as a heavyweight for a year.
Wow.
So I think, he's going to fill out into a legit heavyweight and start to become more used to like moving that type of weight around and just become quicker.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited about what comes next for him. He's like, works a full-time job, but he's in the gym every day, so he's not a guy you have to worry about from a work ethic standpoint. He's super, super friendly, and he's got a great attitude. The feedback I got from everybody in the UFC is he was like a real pleasure to have around on fight week. And those are the type of guys that you want to surround yourself
Right.
with and build upon. So I'm excited for what's next for him. And, the sky's the limit there.
How cool of a moment is it? Because this is one more New England Cartel, a figurehead person like you. How cool of a moment was it for Joe Lauzon and that win in Boston? Comes off a 3-fight losing streak, a year and a half away from the sport, and just straight up blasts through Jonathan Pierce. Unbelievable. Turned the clock back insanely. Like, unbelievable. Did you see that one coming from watching him training in the gym and all this stuff? Training guys, training himself? Or were you even a little surprised? Like, damn, Joe, I didn't know you had it in you still like that.
No, because I had seen Jonathan Pierce fight I was at the Contender Series out in Vegas the week he fought. So we were cutting weight with my guy, and he was there. And I remember seeing him in the hot tub, and I was like, "Oh, you're fighting?" I was like, "What weight?" And he's like, and I was like, "Oh, 45," because I thought he didn't look as big as some 55, And so when they got the name Jonathan Pierce, we were in a group text with all his coaches, going back and forth, and my vote was yes on it. I was like, "Listen, I think this is a kid that you walk through. Like, I don't think he has the tools. Not that Jonathan Pierce isn't good,
Yeah.
but Joe Lauzon's just not done.
Right.
He's still good. So I was confident that that's what would happen in the fight. From a friend standpoint to Joe, I was praying that that's what would happen because you don't want to see him get hurt like he did in his last fight, and take any undue damage. He's the general of the New England MMA scene. But I really like when I look at Joe in the gym. And then I look at that kid fight. I didn't think that kid had the skill set to do anything to Joe. He had a couple weapons, but Joe's, he can fight smart when he doesn't just throw caution to the wind. And he's got some really good coaches around him. So like going in there, like I felt like that's what he should do to the kid. And then that's what he did. So I felt, a little bit of relief when it happened, but I wasn't surprised by it. Like that's really what I felt like that type of opponent, Joe should do that to them because Joe's, he's had 27 fights now in the UFC for a reason. It's not because they just like him. It's because he's a skilled fighter. So I think Joe fought real smart and then unleashed when he had to. So I think, he got some great coaches around him. He changed some things up for his last camp, and I think the improvement showed. He did strength and conditioning with the same guys that Rob and Calvin go to. He did that for a straight year before he took this fight. And I finished the last, I think it was 5 weeks of strength and conditioning. I did his program with him. And I was just trying to like motivate him, say, listen, don't let this old guy beat you, And he's competitive, man. He didn't ever want to let me beat him. Yeah. So it was good getting to know him through that process. Obviously, we know each other really well just because we're always on the mats at his gym together. But, kind of going through that grind together and seeing him, like if that ends up being his last camp, just being able to be one small part of it, it was cool. Because I remember when he made his UFC debut and I watched on TV. So now fast forward, 14 years? Or whatever it is, 15 years, and then I got to be a little part of his last camp. It's something pretty cool. But it was a cool moment for me, even just sitting in the stands, knowing that like I'm friends with him.
Is a camp for Joe Lauzon at this point in the career similar, just like any other fighters, or because he's got a lot of miles on the car and stuff like that, and he's probably listening to his body? Is it a lot different? Is he doing less sessions, or is he pretty much doing all the same shit every other guy does in the gym?
His schedule looks pretty similar to what Rob and Calvin's does. Wow. He knows his body, so he knows when he has to dial back and stuff like that. But he's got Steve Mays as his head coach, and then he's got Frank, his wrestling coach, and Jake, his Muay Thai coach. He's got a good team around him, and they help guide what his camp's going to look like. But Joe has a say in knowing when to dial back and when to push. But I think if you really look at Joe, he's only 35, and he doesn't have any lingering injuries. It's not like he's walking around like he doesn't have to warm up for 2 hours just to get ready for a session and go home and ice everything. Okay. Like he pretty much eats Five Guys, plays video games, and plays with his kids, and then trains.
Yeah.
Although I think the hard part for the coaching staff was like, we need to make sure Joe warms up. He can't go into sparring like he did when he was 23.
Yeah.
So it was cool seeing him, but like, even seeing him make some adjustments at his 27th fight in the UFC, I think, and changing some things up to know that, like, all right, this wasn't working. I need to do this. I need to listen to the people around me. I think that's going to pay dividends in the long run for him with the younger fighters that he coaches. Because now he can say, like, listen, I know you think you know it all, but I also think I know it all too, and I still listen to the people that I trust. So you got to have a team around you that you trust, and you got to let them make decisions for you. Otherwise, you're running your own camp, and that usually doesn't end up yielding good results.